The morning sun cast golden rays through the tall windows of Adelaide Cottage, where the Wales family was beginning what would become one of the most memorable days in British royal history. Princess Kate stood before her dressing room mirror, her hands steady despite the magnitude of the occasion ahead. Today was King Charles III's coronation, and she knew the eyes of the world would be watching every gesture, every expression, every moment of their family's participation in this historic ceremony. Prince William emerged from his adjacent dressing room, already impeccably dressed in his ceremonial military uniform. The weight of tradition seemed to settle on his shoulders as he adjusted his medals, each one representing years of service and dedication to the crown. He caught his wife's reflection in the mirror and offered her a reassuring smile that spoke volumes about their partnership through decades of public scrutiny and royal duties. Down the hallway, the sounds of gentle chaos echoed as their three children prepared for the day. Prince George, now old enough to understand the significance of the occasion, sat quietly while his valet helped him into his formal attire. The young prince had been briefed extensively about his role in the ceremony, and despite his youth, he carried himself with a dignity that reminded observers of his father at the same age. Princess Charlotte, ever the spirited middle child, was having her hair styled into an elegant arrangement that would complement her specially designed dress. Her excitement was barely contained as she chattered about seeing all the beautiful carriages and meeting the distinguished guests from around the world. Her natural charm and confidence had already made her a favorite with the public, and today would be no exception. Prince Louis, the youngest of the trio, was experiencing a mixture of excitement and nervousness that was entirely appropriate for a child his age, facing such a grand occasion. His parents had worked carefully to prepare him for the long ceremony ahead, explaining in simple terms what would happen and what would be expected of him. The household staff moved with practiced efficiency, ensuring every detail was perfect while maintaining the warm, family atmosphere that Kate and William had worked so hard to preserve for their children. As the family gathered for a private breakfast before departing for Westminster Abbey, there was a sense of quiet anticipation that filled the room. This wasn't just another royal engagement or state function. This was history in the making, and they were not merely observers but central participants in a ceremony that would be remembered for generations to come. The conversation at breakfast was a careful balance of practical reminders about protocol and gentle encouragement. William reviewed the order of events with George, while Kate helped Charlotte with her gloves and ensured Louis understood when he would need to sit quietly. Despite the formality of the occasion ahead, there were moments of ordinary family life that reminded everyone present that beneath the titles and ceremonial roles, they were simply parents preparing their children for an extraordinary day. Outside, the security detail was making final preparations for the journey to Westminster Abbey. The road had been planned and rehearsed countless times, with every contingency considered. The crowds were already gathering along the ceremonial route, many having camped overnight to secure the best viewing positions. The excitement in London was palpable, with visitors from around the world joining British citizens in celebrating this momentous occasion. As the time approached to leave Adelaide Cottage, Kate took a final look at her family. William stood tall and confident, every inch the future king he was destined to become. The children, despite their youth, seemed to understand the gravity of the moment while maintaining the natural joy that made them so beloved by the public. She felt a surge of pride not just in their appearance, but in how well they had all prepared for this day that would mark a new chapter in the monarchy's long history. The royal convoy departed Adelaide Cottage with military precision, each vehicle in the motorcade serving a specific purpose in ensuring the family's safe and dignified arrival at Westminster Abbey. Prince William and Princess Kate rode in the lead car with their children, the windows offering glimpses to the thousands of well-wishers who had lined the streets despite the early hour. As their vehicle moved through the London streets, the children pressed their faces to the windows in wonder at the spectacular sight before them. Union Jack flags fluttered from every available surface, and the crowd seemed to stretch endlessly in both directions. Princess Charlotte waved enthusiastically at groups of children who had been brought to witness the historic event, her natural warmth immediately connecting with the people who had come to celebrate. Prince George maintained his composure with remarkable maturity, occasionally pointing out landmarks to his younger brother Louis, who was experiencing his first major royal procession. The youngest prince's eyes were wide with amazement at the pageantry unfolding around them. From the mounted police officers to the elaborate decorations that had transformed London's streets into a royal thoroughfare. Kate used these quiet moments in the car to offer gentle reminders about the day ahead. She spoke softly about the importance of the ceremony they were about to witness, explaining in terms the children could understand how their grandfather was about to become king and what that would mean for their family and the country. Her calm presence helped steady any nerves the children might have been feeling as they approached Westminster Abbey. The ancient abbey came into view, its Gothic spires reaching toward the cloudy London sky. The building had been transformed for the occasion, with additional security measures seamlessly integrated into the historic architecture. Guests from around the world were already taking their seats inside, creating a gathering of dignitaries, celebrities, and representatives from every corner of the Commonwealth that was unprecedented in its scope and significance. Saleh watched the abbey approach with a mixture of anticipation and profound respect for the institution he would one day inherit. He had attended numerous state occasions at Westminster Abbey, but today felt different. Today he was witnessing the formal beginning of his father's reign, a moment that brought his own future responsibilities into sharp focus while filling him with pride. For the man who had waited decades for this moment, the security presence around the abbey was extensive but discreet, with officers positioned at strategic points throughout the area. The Metropolitan Police had coordinated with international security services to ensure the safety of the numerous world leaders and dignitaries who would be attending the ceremony. Despite the massive security operation, there was an atmosphere of celebration rather than tension, reflecting the joyful nature of the occasion. As their car slowed to navigate the final approach to the abbey, Kate adjusted Charlotte's dress one last time and straightened Louis's collar with the practiced efficiency of a mother who had attended countless formal events. George needed no such attention. He had learned to maintain his appearance throughout long public engagements, a skill that would serve him well throughout his life in the public eye. The sound of church bells rang out across London, their ancient tones mixing with the cheers of the crowds and the clip-clop of horses' hooves as the ceremonial processions converged on Westminster Abbey. Television crews from around the world captured every angle of the historic scene, knowing that they were documenting a day that would be studied and remembered for centuries to come. Inside the abbey, the organist began the preliminary music that would set the tone for the ceremony ahead. The sound resonated through the ancient stones, creating an atmosphere of solemnity and grandeur that was perfectly suited to the crowning of a new monarch. Guests settled into their seats, many checking their programs one final time to ensure they understood the complex choreography of the ceremony they were about to witness. The royal car came to a smooth stop at the entrance to Westminster Abbey, where a red carpet stretched from the vehicle to the ancient doors of the church. A small group of officials waited to greet the Wales family, their faces reflecting the solemnity of the occasion mixed with barely contained excitement at being part of such a historic moment. Prince William stepped out first, his military uniform immaculate despite the journey through London streets. He turned immediately to assist his wife, offering his hand as Princess Kate emerged with the grace and poise that had made her one of the most admired members of the royal family. Her outfit was perfectly chosen for the occasion, elegant enough to honor the significance of the day while remaining appropriate. For her role as a supportive family member, rather than the central focus, the children followed, with Prince George stepping out with careful dignity that belied his young age. He had been coached extensively on royal protocol, and it showed in the way he carried himself as cameras captured every moment of their arrival. Princess Charlotte practically bounced with excitement as she took in the grandeur of the scene, her natural enthusiasm bringing smiles to the faces of the officials waiting to greet them. Prince Louis, holding tightly to his mother's hand, looked around with wide-eyed wonder at the spectacle surrounding them. The youngest member of the family was clearly overwhelmed by the scale of the event, but his parents' calm presence helped him navigate the formal greetings and brief walk toward the abbey entrance. As they made their way along the red carpet, the family was greeted by the Archbishop of Canterbury and other senior church officials who would be conducting the ceremony. These brief exchanges were captured by photographers positioned at strategic points, creating images that would grace newspaper front pages around the world the following day. The sound of the abbey's bells grew louder as they approached the entrance, mixing with the distant cheers of crowds who had caught glimpses of their arrival through the security barriers. Inside the ancient building, guests could hear the approach of the Wales family, and conversations quieted as everyone prepared for their entrance. Kate took a moment to check each child's appearance one final time, straightening collars and smoothing hair with the instinctive care of a mother who knew that every detail would be scrutinized by millions of viewers around the world. Her calm efficiency helped settle any last-minute nerves the children might have been experiencing as they prepared to enter the most important ceremony of their young lives. William exchanged brief words with the security detail, confirming the arrangements for the family's seating and ensuring that everything was proceeding according to plan. His experience with royal protocol was evident in how smoothly he navigated these final preparations, setting an example for his children about the importance of attention to detail in royal duties. The abbey's interior was visible through the open doors, revealing a sea of distinguished guests and elaborate decorations that had transformed the ancient space into a setting worthy of a coronation. The lighting inside created an almost ethereal atmosphere, with centuries of history seeming to converge on this single moment in time. As they paused at the threshold of Westminster Abbey, the Wales family represented both the continuity of the British monarchy and its future. William, as heir to the throne, carried the weight of knowing that he would one day stand where his father was about to stand. Kate embodied the modern face of the royal family, bringing grace and relatability to an ancient institution. The children represented hope and renewal, connecting the monarchy to future generations in the most personal way possible. The final preparations were complete. The music inside the abbey swelled to herald their entrance, and ushers moved into position to guide the family to their seats. In moments, they would join the congregation of world leaders, dignitaries, and invited guests who had gathered to witness the coronation of King Charles III, taking their place in a ceremony that would be remembered as one of the defining moments of the 21st century. The Wales family crossed the threshold into Westminster Abbey, and immediately the magnitude of the occasion became apparent. The ancient Gothic architecture soared above them, while hundreds of distinguished guests filled every available seat. Presidents, prime ministers, royalty from around the world, and celebrities had all gathered to witness this historic moment, creating an atmosphere unlike anything the children had ever experienced. Prince George walked with measured steps beside his parents, his training in royal protocol evident in how he acknowledged the subtle nods from guests while maintaining his composure. The young prince understood that cameras were capturing every expression, every gesture, and he carried himself with a dignity that impressed even the most experienced. Royal watchers present in the abbey. Princess Charlotte's excitement was harder to contain as she took in the spectacular sight of the abbey's interior. The decorations were breathtaking, with flowers and ceremonial banners creating a riot of color against the ancient stone walls. Her natural charm showed as she offered small waves to familiar faces among the congregation, bringing moments of warmth to what could have been an intimidatingly formal environment. Prince Louis stayed close to his mother, occasionally reaching for her hand when the grandeur of the surroundings became overwhelming. The youngest Wales child was experiencing sensory overload from the music, the crowds, and the sheer scale of everything around him, but Kate's reassuring presence helped him navigate each step toward their designated seats. As they made their way down the abbey's central aisle, conversations hushed and heads turned to watch the family's progress. International media representatives positioned in carefully designated areas captured every moment of their entrance. The images being broadcast around the world showed a family that embodied both the tradition of the British monarchy and its evolution into the modern era. Their seats were positioned to provide an excellent view of the coronation ceremony while ensuring the children could see everything that would unfold. Palace staff had carefully considered the logistics of keeping 3 young children comfortable and engaged during what would be an exceptionally long and formal ceremony. Special arrangements had been made to ensure they would have clear sight lines and easy access if any of them needed to step away. Briefly, William took his seat with the bearing of a man who understood his place in the succession and the weight of history surrounding this moment. He had attended his grandmother's coronation as a child, though he had been too young to fully appreciate its significance at the time. Now, watching his father prepare to be crowned, He felt the full weight of royal responsibility settling on his shoulders. Kate settled the children with practiced efficiency, ensuring each had what they needed for the long ceremony ahead. Her experience managing royal events with children was invaluable, and she had developed subtle techniques for keeping them engaged and comfortable during lengthy formal occasions. Other parents in the congregation watched with admiration as she balanced maternal care with royal dignity. The abbey filled with the sound of the choir warming up, their voices creating harmonies that seemed to rise to the very rafters of the ancient building. The acoustics of Westminster Abbey were legendary, and the music seemed to envelop everyone present in an atmosphere of solemnity and celebration that perfectly suited the historic occasion. Around them, the congregation represented a remarkable gathering of global leadership. Heads of state who rarely appeared together were seated side by side, creating diplomatic opportunities that extended far beyond the ceremony itself. The coronation was serving as an informal international summit, with relationships being strengthened and new connections formed in the margins of the religious service. As the final guests took their seats, and the ceremony preparations reached completion, the Wales family found themselves at the center of a moment that would be remembered for generations. They were no longer simply attending a family celebration. They were participating in a cornerstone event in British and Commonwealth history, representing both the monarchy's past and its future in the most visible way possible. The coronation ceremony began with the ancient ritual procession that had been part of British royal tradition for over 1,000 years. King Charles III entered Westminster Abbey with measured steps, surrounded by the pageantry and protocol that marked this as one of the most solemn moments in the life of the nation. The Wales family watched from their seats as William's father embarked on the formal journey to become the crowned monarch of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth realms. Prince George leaned forward in his seat, fascinated by the intricate choreography unfolding before him. He had studied the ceremony in preparation for this day, but seeing it in person was entirely different from reading about it in history books. The young prince began to understand that he was witnessing something that connected him directly to centuries of royal tradition, a chain of succession that would one day include him as well. The Archbishop of Canterbury's voice filled the abbey as he began the coronation service, his words carrying the weight of religious and constitutional significance that went far beyond mere ceremony. Princess Kate watched with obvious emotion as her father-in-law undertook the solemn vows that would formally confirm his role as head of state and defender of the faith, roles that she knew William would inherit in time. Princess Charlotte was captivated by the elaborate ceremonial objects being used in the service. The crown jewels, some of which she had seen during family visits to the Tower of London, took on new significance as they were brought forward for use in the actual coronation. Her young mind struggled to comprehend that these weren't just historical artifacts but active symbols of power and authority being transferred to her grandfather. The moment of the actual crowning approached with palpable tension throughout the abbey. Prince Louis, despite his youth, seemed to sense the gravity of what was happening around him. He sat quietly, occasionally whispering questions to his mother, who answered in the softest tones possible while maintaining her focus on the ceremony unfolding at the altar. When the St. Edward's crown was lifted above King Charles III's head, a hush fell over the entire congregation. This was the climactic moment that centuries of British history had been building toward, and everyone present understood they were witnessing something that would be remembered long after they were gone. The crown descended slowly, placed upon the king's head with ceremonial precision that had been rehearsed countless times. The congregation erupted in the traditional cry of "God Save the King" as the crowning was completed, and the abbey bells began to ring in celebration. Prince William felt a surge of pride for his father, mixed with a profound understanding of what this moment meant for his own future. He was now the heir to a reigning monarch, a position that brought both honor and tremendous responsibility. Kate reached over to help Princess Charlotte, who had become emotional during the ceremony, overwhelmed by the grandeur and the realization that her beloved grandfather had just become king. The little girl's tears were not of sadness, but of a complex mixture of joy, pride, and the weight of understanding that her family was at the center of something much larger than themselves. The ceremony continued with the homage of the peers, a tradition that formally acknowledged the new king's authority. Prince William would participate in this ancient ritual, kneeling before his father in a moment that would symbolize both personal, filial respect and constitutional recognition of the new monarch's authority. The children watched with fascination as their father prepared to take part in this most formal of family moments. International guests throughout the abbey were clearly moved by what they were witnessing. Many had attended state occasions in their own countries, but the British coronation carried a unique weight of history and tradition that was evident in every gesture, every word, every moment of the ceremony. Television cameras captured reactions from around the world as global leaders witnessed the formal installation of King Charles III. As the religious portion of the ceremony reached its conclusion, the Wales family prepared for the next phase of the day's events. The newly crowned king would soon process out of the abbey in triumph, beginning the celebratory journey back to Buckingham Palace that would allow the people of London and millions of television viewers worldwide to join in the celebration of Britain's new monarch. The coronation ceremony concluded with magnificent fanfare as King Charles III processed out of Westminster Abbey as the newly crowned monarch, his steps marking the beginning of a new era in British history. The Wales family prepared to join the ceremonial procession, knowing that their participation in the day's final events would be watched by millions of people around the world who had invested emotionally in this historic moment. Prince William stood to join the formal procession, his military uniform gleaming as he took his place in the carefully choreographed exit from the abbey. His role as heir to the throne meant he would be prominently featured in the celebrations that would follow, and he carried himself with the dignity appropriate to someone who now stood first in line to inherit the crown his father had just received. Princess Kate gathered the children with maternal efficiency, ensuring they were ready for the transition from the solemn ceremony to the celebratory procession that would take them back through London streets to Buckingham Palace. The children had behaved remarkably well during the long ceremony, but she knew they were tired and likely overwhelmed by everything they had witnessed. Prince George walked with newfound understanding of his place in the royal hierarchy. Having watched his grandfather's coronation, he now comprehended in a way he never had before that he was part of an institution much larger than his family. The young prince had witnessed history being made and understood that he, too, would someday play a central role in the continuing story of the British monarchy. As they emerged from Westminster Abbey, the sound of cheering crowds was overwhelming. Thousands of people had waited hours to catch a glimpse of the royal family, and their enthusiasm was infectious. Princess Charlotte waved eagerly at the crowds, her natural warmth connecting immediately with the people who had gathered to celebrate this momentous day in British history. The procession back to Buckingham Palace was a triumph of organization and pageantry. Horse guards, military bands, and ceremonial vehicles created a spectacular display that showcased the best of British pomp and circumstance. The newly crowned king led the procession in the gold state coach, while the Wales family followed in their own carriage, waving to the crowds that lined every inch of the route. Prince Louis, revived by the excitement of the crowds and the spectacle of the procession, pointed excitedly at the horses and musicians that surrounded their carriage. His parents took turns explaining what they were seeing, using this as a teaching moment about royal traditions and the relationship between the monarchy and the British people who had turned out to celebrate. The journey through London revealed the true scale of public support for the monarchy. Every balcony, every window, every available viewing spot was filled with people celebrating the coronation. Union Jack flags flew everywhere, and the atmosphere was one of genuine joy and national pride. The Wales family could see that this wasn't merely a formal state occasion, but a genuine celebration that had captured the imagination of the entire country. Buckingham Palace came into view, its facade decorated specially for the coronation celebrations. The famous balcony from which the royal family would acknowledge the crowds was already prepared, and the family knew that thousands more people had gathered in front of the palace to witness this traditional conclusion to Coronation Day. As their carriage arrived at Buckingham Palace, the Wales family prepared for the final public appearance of this historic day. The balcony moment would be broadcast around the world, providing a lasting image of King Charles III's coronation day and the family who would carry the monarchy forward into the future. The children were tired but exhilarated, as they prepared to step onto the famous balcony. They had participated in one of the most important days in modern British history, and their natural charm and good behavior had won the hearts of everyone who had watched the day's events unfold. As they prepared to wave to the crowds one final time, the Wales family embodied both the dignity of royal tradition and the warmth of a modern family who had shared this extraordinary day with the world. The day had been a complete success, marking not just the beginning of King Charles III's reign, but also showcasing a royal family that was prepared to meet the challenges and opportunities of the modern era while honoring the traditions that had sustained the monarchy for over 1,000 years.